Welcome to the Dominate the Deal podcast, where we teach you how to find better deals and negotiate the very best of terms so that you can dominate every deal and win in your market today. Today, I want to talk about what I would do if I had to start over from scratch and all I had was the information that I've gathered over the past 15 years in the real estate investing space. So we're going to talk about no money ways of doing this, and we're going to talk about a little bit of money ways of doing this. And no matter what your situation is, if you watch this video and you do the things that I talk about in this video, I can guarantee that you will make money in real estate and you will do very well. You do not have to be rich to make a fortune in real estate. What you need is information. You need the information, and then you actually need to act on that information that you're given. If you do that, you're going to do great. All right. So let's just start from the very beginning, right? I'm just going to talk to you like you're a brand new, wet behind the ears investor. You don't even know how to analyze a deal. Okay. So you're just getting started. First thing that I would tell you, if we were to sit down and have coffee, you need to be able to find really good deals. Okay. And part of finding good deals is being able to evaluate a deal. So I want you, as your first step, to do a couple things. One, I want you to create a dedicated email address. Your name does rei@gmail.com or something like that. Okay. Now, I want you to go on Facebook, and I want you to join as many Facebook real estate investing or off-market deals groups in your area or the areas that you're interested in investing in as you possibly can. So, search for off-market real estate, search for real estate investor groups, search for real estate investor association, and then just add your city to it. You should see a ton of them. You could search for, let's just say you're looking in Cleveland wholesale deals, Cleveland real estate investor group, Cleveland off-market properties. Join as many of these groups as possible, and then scroll through the wall or the feed or whatever you want to call it in all of these groups. And anytime you see a deal, someone saying, I'm selling a 2-bedroom, 1-bathroom house, it needs this kind of rehab. It doesn't even matter if it's a good deal or bad deal. What I want you to do is I want you to put your new email address in the comment section for every single one of those deals. This is going to do two things. One, it's going to cause the person that actually posted the property in the first place, they're going to email you information on this deal. They're probably also going to add you to their buyers list, and anytime they get a new deal, they're going to send you an email about it. Also, other wholesalers that are looking for more buyers are going to go through Facebook groups, and they're looking for posts just like this where people just like you put their email address in the comment section. Anytime they see that, they're going to add those email addresses to their buyers list. Pretty soon, your email inbox is going to be flooded with deals. Now, I say that loosely because most of them aren't going to be very good deals, but what they are will be opportunities for you to A, learn to analyze a deal, and B, an opportunity for you to build relationships with other wholesalers in the market. You will find good deals in these groups, and if you know how to use them and you know how to negotiate with wholesalers, you know how to negotiate with sellers, then you will be able to create a decent amount of income for yourself. Now, in order to turn these deals into income for yourself, you're going to have to do a few things, and we're going to talk about that more a little bit later when we talk about negotiation and deal structuring. But for now, I just want you to remember those two action steps: create the email address and start blasting it all over, these Facebook groups. And we'll kind of move on. So next thing, you need to be able to find a deal. In order to find a deal, that means you need to know how to analyze a deal. And one of the best ways to analyze a deal is just to have a bunch of deals sent to you and start practicing, right? Obviously, a deal is only a deal if you're able to buy a property for a lot less than it's worth. You need to be able to buy it for so much less than it's worth that you can also rehab it. And after you factor in how much you paid for the property, all the closing costs, all the holding costs, all the rehab costs, there's still a profit if you decide you want to sell it for, let's just say, 25% less than what it's worth, right? That's the kind of deal you're looking for. It can't be just an okay. For the most part, when you're starting out, you probably want to focus on deals that are really, really, really good deals, okay? If you do that, it will solve a lot of other problems for you. It will help you find buyers, because if you're one of those guys posting a deal in one of those Facebook groups and it's a real deal, the real buyers with real cash in their pocket, they're going to notice, right? And they're going to say, this guy right here, he actually knows what he's doing. He knows how to find good deals. And I want to make sure that anytime he calls me or anytime he texts me or anytime he sends me an email, I answer right away. If you find a deal that's just kind of not that great, you're not going to get that kind of response. You're not going to be looked at as a mover and a shaker, and you're not going to get a lot of chances for second impressions. So your first impression needs to be your best impression here. So find really, really good deals, and that's how you figure it out. Look, I'm not going to walk you through how to total up how much a rehab costs. You're going to have to you can maybe look at some of my earlier videos for that if you want, but you're going to have to just put in the work. Flooring costs X amount per square foot. How many square foot is in this house? What's the average cost per square foot in labor for installing a floor in this area? Yada, yada, yada. Do that for everything imaginable on the property. Subtract that from the actual value of the house if it were sold on the retail market. Subtract the profit you want to make. Subtract your other costs. And after you get down to that number, that can be your offer when you start actually doing these deals. Okay, so now we're talking about finding deals and what makes a good deal, so on and so forth. Blasting your email address in Facebook groups will get deals coming to your inbox, but it's not going to be the best deals, right? The best deals that you're going to get are from doing direct to seller marketing or direct to seller communication. So you will find a few deals, and if you don't have any money, then you're not going to be able to do direct mail. So you're going to have to find those few deals, places like Facebook Marketplace, for sale by owner, on Zillow, which is tough. I'm not going to lie. Calling for sale by owner leads on Zillow it's just not fun because they're getting called by like hundreds of people. So I like Facebook Marketplace because you can still find some deals where people are putting stuff online and they're not getting bombarded by people that just aren't serious. So if you have zero money, Facebook Marketplace, if you have $1,000, okay, now we can do something, all right? If you got $1,000, you can download PropStream, okay? And you can pull a list of people that are, one, absentee owners. That means that means that they own a house and they do not live in it, right? They're absent from the house that they own, absentee owners. And then you can also pull a list of people that are behind on their property taxes. You can pull a list of tired landlords. You can pull a list of, houses that have code violations. And you can stack these lists on top of each other as much as you want to. I do fine just sending mail to absentee owners. It doesn't matter if they have all the other criteria or not. But if you have a huge list, let's say 20,000 people, and you don't want to send out 20,000 letters, if you want to, you can send out a mailing to people that only have code violations and also are behind on their property taxes and also are absentee owners. And also our tired landlords. You can make it where it's super niched down, right? Just remember that if you do that,
then you're going to be getting leads, but they're going to be for really messed up properties most of the time. So anyway, if it were me, I would probably start with just one or two, absentee owners or absentee owners that are behind on their taxes. And then I would pull a list in an area that I think I want to buy in, or I think other real estate investors are going to buy in. And then I would print out a bunch of letters. Now you can, I'm setting up a school account where I'm going to teach some people some things that it's in a little bit more in-depth way than here, probably a little bit more organized. And when I do that, I'll put the link below. So by the time you watch this video, there might already be the school set up. But either way, when I set it up, I'll put a link in the description below. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put my exact letter that I use up there for anybody that joins this school. But either way, regardless of whether you use my letter or you just make up your own, you can just Google, wholesale letter template, right? What you're going to do is you're going to use Microsoft Word or something similar to take your list and merge it with your letter. Right. So in Microsoft Word, it's called the mail merge function. And what it'll do is it'll say, hey, property owner, are you interested in selling your property at 123 Main Street? Right. And then it will swap out property owner for whoever name is at the top of the list and whatever address is at the top of the list. And then it'll just do that for every single record on that list. And you'll just print out 1,000 letters or however many you got. Right. Then you're going to print off that spreadsheet. And if you're broke, and that's okay, I was broke when I first started this, then you're going to hand address every single one of those addresses on that list. And you're going to put a purple heart stamp on a number 10 envelope. That's just your regular standard envelope. And you're going to actually write out your return address at the top left-hand corner of that envelope, right? So it needs to be something like this, but, purple heart stamp. And then here, this is a JV partner of mine, so I'm not going to show all the information, but see, we used a stamp right here. You shouldn't do that. You should actually write out the address, the return address up in that top left-hand corner. Now, if you don't want to put your personal address, I completely understand that. I probably wouldn't do that either. You can go to UPS and get a type of PO box that it's a type of PO box that has the same format as a regular mailing address. So it won't say PO Box 1584 at, Madison, Georgia or whatever. It's not going to say that. Also, a regular PO box is fine for the most part. What you're doing by sending out an envelope like this, even if it says PO box, what you're doing is you're creating extreme curiosity for the person that receives this letter, right? They don't think that it's an advertisement. They're wondering if it's like a long lost friend, a relative, maybe a bill from a lawyer. It's hand addressed, so it's something serious. They're going to at least open it if they receive this letter most of the time. That's your goal, right? And then you're just going to put all of these letters in the mail, and you're going to wait for people to call you. And that brings me to step 2. Before you print all these letters out, you need a dedicated phone number, right? Something that is specific to your letter. Now, there are a couple of different softwares that you can use. One of them is called Smartphone, SMRT phone, I think. I'll put the link below. As a matter of fact, I might work out an affiliate with them. I'm not sure yet, but if I do put the link in the description below, it'll probably be an affiliate link, which means I'll probably make a small amount off of advertising for them. But I would recommend them either way. I've worked with them and used them in the past quite a bit. So anyway, the idea though is you want to know how well your letter is working, right? And so you can create a dedicated phone numbers for each mail piece that you send out, but you also just don't want your personal phone blowing up with calls. You want to know that this person calling is probably calling because they received a letter from you, and then you need to answer it, right? You can't get scared. You can't not take the phone call. You answer that thing. Or if for whatever reason you can't, they leave a voicemail, you call them back right away. All right, so moving on. Like let's just say now you've got some mail out. You're talking to people on Facebook Marketplace. You're seeing deals. You need to know how to structure that deal so that you can either A, find somebody to buy it for more than you negotiate with the seller, or buy it yourself. If you have no money, there's still ways to buy it yourself with no money. But it needs to be in such a way that you're getting it at such a great deal that later on down the road, however long that might be, 2 weeks, a month, 3 months, you can sell it and make a decent profit, even if you don't touch the house, right? That's how you need to think about all of your negotiation from here on out. Okay, so how can we structure this? Well, again, a couple different ways. First way is you can just put the property under contract. You can give the seller $100 earnest money or $1,000 earnest money, right? That says if for whatever reason, if I break this contract, you get this $1,000, or this $100. But you're also going to build in some contingencies into that contract to make it where you can get your $1,000 back or your $100 back. For instance, you can say something like contingent on 14 days due diligence, right? And during that due diligence period, you can get your money back for any reason at all, right? Or you could say 30 days due diligence. Now, keep in mind that you're dealing with very motivated people. They're in a bad spot, and you need to treat them the way that you want to be treated. So don't jerk them around and drag them along and have them waiting until the 11th hour for you to cancel this contract if you're not actually sure or fairly sure that you can make it work, because then you're just mistreating them and you're putting them in a worse spot, and you're not doing anything to benefit your name either. Your name is worth way more than any money that you're going to make in this business. So keep a good name, but if you think that you've got a good deal, go ahead and, sometimes things happen. Sometimes you forget to check if the house is in the flood zone, and then you pull it up and it turns out that it's in the flood zone and the insurance on it is like, $15,000 a year. Well, that probably will be a deal killer, right? Sometimes you find out there are termites. Sometimes you find out that the neighbor is a drug lord. I mean, you just never know. Bottom line is, though, you put the property under contract and you build in some contingencies so that you don't lose your earnest money. And then during this due diligence period, if you're not going to be buying the property yourself, then that's your time to find somebody else that does want to buy it. Okay? And if you find somebody else that wants to buy it, there's two ways that you can pass that deal off to them. One would be assigning the contract to them, okay? Assigning a contract is basically, let's just say I get a property under contract for $100,000. Somebody else wants to buy it. They're willing to pay $120,000. I can assign my $100,000 contract to them for a $20,000 assignment fee. And then when we get to the closing table, they bring their $120,000 to the closing table. 20 of it goes to me. The other 100 goes to the seller. The buyer is also going to pay all the closing costs. And it's a really clean, really easy way of doing things. Sometimes an owner will see that you're making $20,000 just by being the middleman. And, it happens where they will pull out of the deal. Also, you get greedy buyers that don't care about the fact that they're getting a really good deal at $120,000. Sometimes they see your $20,000 assignment fee and they pull out, which is stupid. If they're getting a good deal, it shouldn't matter how much money you're making. All they're really doing is ruining their reputation and their name. But that's a topic for another video. Anyway, because of this situation where sometimes people will back out if they see a high assignment fee, you might want to consider doing what is called a double close. Double closing is where you buy it for 10 seconds, right? And then you sell it. And now the buyer and the seller, they do not see how much money you're making on the deal. Now, in order to do this, it really depends on what state you're in and your attorney. some attorneys in some states will still let the buyer bring all the funds to the closing table and then use those funds to fund your purchase, but some will not. And in those cases, you're either going to have to put the money out yourself, or you're going to have to get something called transactional funding. And you can find, there are people that will give you transactional funding. One of the best ways to find those people is to go to real estate investor meetups, or you can just go in those Facebook groups that we talked about beforehand and say, look, I need transactional funding. A bunch of people will probably pop up. And as long as they feel good about the deal and they see your contract with the buyer and they see your contract with the seller, they might charge you 1%. Some people charge 0.5%. Some people charge 2%. So obviously the numbers have to work, but that is a way to spend a little bit of money to protect your spread if you're going to be doing what we call a wholesale deal, which is where you're either working with an assignment or double closing, but you're not really taking possession of the property for more than 10 or 15 seconds, however long it takes for two sets of deeds to get signed. All right, now what if you don't want to wholesale? What if you want to hold on to this property for a little longer? Maybe you realize, maybe find a property and it's a really great property and it has a ton of potential, but maybe the guy that owned it was a hoarder. Maybe it has stuff stacked up to the ceilings in all the rooms, and there's just like a very narrow corridor for you to walk through the whole house. And you know that if you clean this house out, then you could probably make an extra $20,000 or $30,000 off the property. Well, what do you do then? That's when I recommend pitching some sort of seller financing to the person that needs to get rid of the property. And there are a couple different ways to do this, and different sellers are going to want to do different things. And your job is to find out what they need and then create a way for them to get what they need. And sometimes they have a better chance of getting what they need if they're willing to wait 2 or 3 months to get it. Right now, if they need cash today and that's their number one concern, then you can offer them an extremely low price, 10 cents on the dollar sometimes. I mean, truthfully, there is no limit. I've had people give me houses for free. I've had people sell me houses for $500. Sometimes just because they needed it out of their name, right? I mean, there's a bunch of different motivating factors that go into why someone would take pennies on the dollar or even give away a house for free. You need to figure out what that motivation is. You need to figure out why they need to get rid of the house, and you need to figure out what they need in return. So the example of the person that gave me the house, they didn't want the liability anymore, right? Some squatter had just recently broken into their house, almost started a fire that burnt the whole thing down, and they were just scared that somebody was going to die in there. So give it to me. I rid them of their liability. It was very much a win-win. But for a lot of people, they might need the money to, pay off some sort of lien on another property. Or they might have a huge tax bill and they've got to pay it right away. Otherwise, they're going to be in a whole heap of trouble. So whatever it is, they need a specific amount of money, right? And their house is in such a shape that a cash buyer is not going to give them that specific amount of money. But they also, might be in a situation where they can't wait 10 years to get all of their money, right? And so one of my favorite things to do is find out what they actually need, not what they want, but what they actually need. And then I'll tell them, look, my capital is tied up right now. I don't have the $50,000 that you need right now. But what I can do is I can make sure you have it within 4 months. Or I can make sure you have it within 6 months or a year, just whatever we work out. I need to make sure that I have enough time to do what needs to be done in order to either flip this property or go to a bank and do like a cash out, right? Cash out refinance is what that would be. Or somehow get them their money, right? So, oftentimes what I'll do is I just did it last month on multiple packages. One of them was a 7-house package. I put it under the whole thing under contract. We took possession. We took title for these 7 houses, and they were, cheap houses. I think the whole thing was $188,000. We set up a 1-year financing deal, right, where after a year I have to pay that full $188,000. Now, in the meantime, every single month, I think it's set at 8% interest annually, right? The only thing I have to pay until the year is up is a monthly interest only payment. So on $188,000, I can't remember exactly what that came out to, like $1,250 or something like that per month. That allows me to take title to all 7 of those properties, and then I can clean them up and I can sell them one by one. I can do whatever, some of them I'm doing some light rehabs to, some of them I'm not really doing anything to, but that gives me time to exit however I want to on those properties. And so some of them I will keep and I'll fix them up, and then I'll go to a bank and I'll say, hey, look at this property. It's worth, $100,000. The bank will give me 80, right? Which would have covered my rehab and paid the seller off and probably given me a decent little spread in the middle of profit that I can just put in my pocket. And by the way, that's tax free. That's one option. Or, another would be, again, I could sell it to another real estate investor. But the idea is I structured the deal in such a way that I had as much time as I needed to win on this property. And so again, going back to the whole point of this video, if I were to start over from scratch, knowing how to do this would probably be my biggest asset. It would allow me to scale 20, 30, 40 times faster than I did, because look, knowledge is power. You don't have to have money in this business. You need to have know-how, right? You need to understand how seller financing works. You need to understand how direct marketing works. You need to understand how targeting works, how to find the people that need to sell their house right now. You need to understand what a sub-2 deal is. You need to understand the structure of how seller financing works and all the different ways that you can manipulate that. And I'm not saying manipulate in a bad way. I'm just saying all the different ways you can structure that to make money. And there's just a million ways. You need to know what a wrap is. You need to know how to attract private money lenders so that when a great deal comes along and you don't have the cash for it in the bank, you can still make sure to take advantage of it, right? You need to know how to wholesale properties. You need to know assignments and double closes and blind closes and all these things. And that's what this show is all about. We're going to start doing all of this on various channels. We're going to have investors on that specialize in very specific type of real estate investing. And I'm just going to do my best to make sure it's as beneficial for everybody listening as possible. So anyway, I think I've rambled on long enough. This video is probably, by the time we edit it, still going to be 25, 30 minutes long. I hope it was helpful for you guys, and I will see you in the next one.